As people are awesome. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining our Hunger Free Communities quarterly meeting. And you see the agenda on your screen. I'm Minerva Delgado. We have with us Aaliyah Fard from the Alliance to End Hunger, and we have two very special guests with us today. But we thought we'd get started with introductions. Part of the reasons we have these meetings is that so you all can get to know each other a little bit better as part of the Hunger Free Communities Network. And so we'd love for you to, one, in your little video box, make sure you have your name and your organization if possible. And so we'd love if you can unmute and be on video and just do a very quick introduction of your name and your organization and your role if you like, and also where you're joining us from if it's not obvious in the name of your organization. So I'm just going to call on people as I see you on my screen. So I'd love to get started with Denise Dixon.
Good afternoon. I am Denise Dixon. I'm the Executive Director of the Idaho Hunger Relief Task Force, and I'm joining you from Boise, Idaho.
Welcome. Let's go to Mary Herbert.
I am Mary Herbert. I am the West Texas Regional Director for the Baylor Collaborative on Hunger and Poverty, and I'm located in San Angelo, Texas.
Thanks, Mary. Next, if we can go to Alex.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Klug. I'm the Assistant Director of Hall Hunger Initiative. We're outside Dayton, Ohio.
And I see Mark is joining us as well from Hall Hunger.
Hi, Mark Willis with Hall Hunger. And yes, I'm sitting out here at a farm watching the farm get ready to spring into action.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll go to Allison next.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Allison Schnitzer. I'm with the Montgomery County Food Council, and we are in the DMV area, and it is a beautiful day here today.
Yes, it really is. Hopefully I'll get a chance to go outside.
Right. Got my window open, at least.
Thank you. And Alondra, who's new to our coalition. So welcome to Alondra and your first meeting with us.
Thank you all. My name is Alondra Alvarado. I'm the new president and CEO of San Diego Hunger Coalition.
Enor, who will be presenting today as well. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Enor Horton. I'm the Executive Director of Hunger Free Vermont. And Alondra, I grew up in San Diego, so how perfect that I got called on right after you. Thank you for taking on that role.
That's perfect. I love that. Thanks. Callie, would you go next?
Hi, my name is Callie Price. I am also with the Baylor Collaborative. I am a graduate intern here and very excited to be joining today.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Deborah?
Sorry, having a few technical difficulties. My name is Deborah Franco. I'm also with the Collaborative on Hunger and Poverty, and I also work with a local coalition addressing hunger in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas, McAllen Regional Office.
Welcome. Elizabeth?
Hi, all. Elizabeth Tuen with the Montgomery County Food Council here in Tacoma Park, Maryland with Allison.
Welcome. Kelsey?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelsey Bootsu. I'm with Gleaners Community Food Bank. We are based in Detroit, Michigan, and I'm just a little bit west in Howell, Michigan, reporting.
Thank you for joining us. Laura?
Hi there. I'm Laura Milliken. I'm the Executive Director of New Hampshire Hunger Solutions, and I'm in Concord, New Hampshire.
Welcome. Lisa?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lisa Pitts. I'm the Director of Hunger Free New Jersey, statewide anti-hunger advocacy organization. Happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. Thank you. Michelle?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Michelle Zurikowski. I'm the CEO at Beyond Hunger, and I'm calling you from beautiful Chicago, Illinois, where it's almost 70 degrees in March.
Wonderful. Jasmine? All right. We, Jasmine, it looks like you're not on audio, so we may come back to you. Did I miss anyone? Someone may have joined while I was scrolling through that I missed, so please feel free to introduce yourself. All right. Thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate you being here today. And I am thrilled to be able to present Carolyn Vega from the No Kid Hungry Center for Best Practices at Share Our Strength. And she's going to be talking about summer opportunities. And so I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Carolyn.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Minerva and Leah, for having me today. I don't think I've met many of you before, but organization names are certainly familiar as some No Kid Hungry partners. I work on our policy analysis team, so definitely review the federal legislation that authorized these two new summer nutrition options, reviewed the interim final rule that came out in December, and have been supporting some resource development based on what those guidelines are. So just excited to talk with you here today about these new opportunities. There we go. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but just to very quickly level set that we've known for a very long time that summer is the hungriest time of year when kids lose access to free and reduced price school meals, and the traditional summer meal programs, the summer food service program and National School Lunch Program Seamless Summer Option, have long failed to meet the need for a variety of reasons. The rules for SFSP and SSO were set up a lot like the school lunch program and other child nutrition programs, where they assume that kids are all coming together to a central place every single day to eat meals together. But obviously in the summer, that's a big challenge because kids largely aren't in school. We know from surveys we've done and other research that a lot of kids are at home over the summer, whether with their parents or another caregiver or siblings, or maybe even alone, and that there just aren't enough summer programs available, affordable, and accessible for many families, and that there can be transportation barriers and other things like that that keep kids from getting to these meal sites to benefit from summer meals. And a lot of these problems are very much amplified in rural areas where there aren't as many programs, there are more transportation barriers and things like that. So because of all of these challenges, in 2019, the last summer before the pandemic, just 1 in 7 kids eligible for free or reduced price school meals got a summer meal. So obviously, huge gap and lost opportunity for those kids. Because it's such a long-standing issue, pilots to address this gap go back more than a decade, including non-congregate summer meals that we'll talk about, with pilots like Meals to You implemented in Texas. So I know you folks know that well, as well as summer EBT, which is like a SNAP or WIC model grocery benefit for families to use over the summer. And so those models, those ideas, they were in existence, but they got road tested much more broadly in response to the pandemic. So there are a lot of meal program flexibilities, specifically around the summer meals programs, available from 2020 and didn't wind down until around spring, summer 2022. And then pandemic EBT followed a similar model to summer EBT of being a grocery benefit for families when kids were missing school due to COVID. And that ran through summer 2023. And both proved to be very successful in supporting kids and families and meeting this need. And you know, the meal program flexibilities being a lot more successful than those traditional summer meals programs with their usual rules around congregate feeding of all eating together in person. So, learning from all of this, in December 2022, Congress permanently authorized 2 new summer nutrition options nationwide: non-congregate summer meals in rural areas, first available last summer with kind of temporary guidance from USDA, and summer EBT beginning this summer, 2024. And based on that law, in December 2023, just this past December, USDA issued an interim final rule on both that will guide implementation for this summer. But then that interim final rule is open for public comment through the end of April. So USDA may, no specific time frame, update the rules for the future, whether that goes into effect in 2025 or maybe beyond. And an important note is that both of these options will work alongside the traditional summer meals program. So congregate SFSP and SSO programs aren't going away. Non-congregate is very much intended to be a complement, where if there is no congregate access, that you can do non-congregate, and summer EBT is available in conjunction with summer meals. So families can get both a summer meal, whether congregate or non-congregate, and still take advantage of summer EBT as well. Okay, so diving into a little more detail on non-congregate summer meals and what we know so far about how this is going to work. The basics are it's available through both SFSP and SSO. So schools that are currently using SSO can take advantage of non-congregate without having to go through SFSP. Under the law, non-congregate is only available in rural areas with no congregate service. And I emphasize under the law because I know folks can sometimes get mad at USDA of, why isn't non-congregate available in the heart of Washington, D.C. And again, that was a restriction that Congress put on this in the law. So USDA can work with how they define rural, but there's only so much they can do because it does limit them to it being rural areas. And the law also lays out that meals can be provided for up to 10 days at a time, up to the usual daily per child limits of 2 meals or a meal and a snack. And it can go through models like curbside or grab and go pickup, mobile routes, or home delivery. So basically different models that allow kids to eat offsite or have the meal at home. So defining rural is a huge piece. Last summer, under the kind of temporary guidance to allow for non-congregate, USDA kind of followed an old rule based on what they used to determine different reimbursement rates in the summer meals programs. And so the map on the left there before the IFR, anywhere that was not purple was considered rural, and all the purple areas were considered urban. And so you can see that left out quite a bit of space in like the Midwest around Chicago and Detroit, a lot of the Eastern Seaboard, a lot of Florida, a lot of Arizona and Southern California, all were considered urban by default, and you had to apply for exceptions. And that was like a state by state process. Some states didn't even consider exceptions. So that was a big hurdle last summer. And now this summer, in that map on the right after the IFR, everywhere in green is considered rural by default without any special approval needed. So there's a map link there, and I can also drop a link to a map that we have in the chat after, where you can get an explore and type an address and see and play around with all of this. But all this to say, the definition of rural this summer and hopefully going forward is much more expansive and much easier for operators. Some other things from the interim final rule, no congregate service, that's still left to the state agency to really define. We know last summer, it was a whole range of things from some states saying you could do non-congregate as long as there wasn't a congregate site within a quarter mile. Some states said that had to be 10 miles away from a congregate site, and all sorts of other things in between. USDA just says states should take into account physical location and barriers, as well as ability to serve the community. The IFR does allow for hybrid sites, where a single site does both congregate and non-congregate service, but it can't be done at the same time, and you can't duplicate meal service such that a kid gets a congregate lunch and a non-congregate lunch on the same day. Another great piece of the IFR is that states cannot deny a sponsor because of their intent to provide non-congregate service. Whereas last summer, states didn't have to do non-congregate at all, purely an option. They could restrict it in all sorts of ways, but this summer, states have to allow a sponsor to do non-congregate unless they have a specific concern around their capacity or integrity or something like that. And similarly, states can only limit flexibilities on a case-by-case basis because of concerns, again, around capacity or integrity. That includes parent or guardian meal pickup without the child present. Multiple meal distribution up to 10 days at a time is the default. And for bulk meal items, so that's like loaves of bread and packs of lunch meat and things like that versus individual sandwiches, that can be done up to 5 days at a time with state discretion to allow up to 10 days at a time. But if you're doing just like unitized meals, that the default is 10 days at a time, unless the state, again, on a case-by-case basis says, we think you could only handle 5. A few other things. Home delivery is permitted by both schools and nonprofit sponsors, but it does require parental consent or opt-in. No second meals are permitted through non-congregate. With in-person congregate meals, you can claim a certain percentage of second meals, but that's not allowed with non-congregate. A tough element is that unless a site operated non-congregate last summer, it's going to be considered a new site for monitoring purposes. So that does add a little extra burden on sponsors for dealing with sites that may be very well experienced with SFSP congregate, but are now switching to non-congregate. They're now considered a new site. And then usual area eligibility rules apply to distribution sites unless you're operating a new site type known as a conditional site, which means that you can operate anywhere, even if it doesn't meet that usual 50% free reduced price eligibility threshold, but you can only serve and claim, you can only claim reimbursement for meals served to free and reduced price eligible kids at a conditional site that's outside of an area eligible location. Happy to answer more questions on any of these. I know I'm running through this all really quickly. Okay, so that was our first new summer nutrition opportunity, and our second is summer EBT. So this is going to provide a $120 grocery benefit per child per summer to families with kids eligible, generally speaking, for free or reduced price school meals. And it's $120 asterisk because that is the level set by Congress for this summer, 2024. But it'll be adjusted for inflation every year after this. And the benefit is also higher in Alaska, Hawaii, and the US territories. But for most of the country, it'll be $120 per child per summer. The program is available to states following SNAP rules for how the card works and what kinds of things can be purchased with it. Same for US territories, it'll follow SNAP or NAP rules. And then it's also open to Indian tribal organizations that administer WIC following WIC rules. So they would basically be translating this $120 grocery benefit into some kind of WIC food package or WIC food purchase. States and Indian tribal organizations have to opt in, and they have to pay half of the administrative costs, which is a big difference from pandemic EBT, where all of the administrative costs were covered by the federal government. And so because the rules are slightly different and because of this state admin match, we have not seen full participation yet across the country, but 37 states, the District of Columbia, 5 US territories, and 3 Indian tribal organizations signaled intent to operate this summer in 2024. Not all of those states may go on to implement. They had plans due to USDA in mid-February. I know a lot of states are just kind of in a holding pattern, waiting to hear back from USDA on how those plans are going to go and what they may be able to pull off, since this is relatively short notice for a new federal program. But some important notes on eligibility, because it is slightly different from pandemic EBT. It is available to children of the state's compulsory school age who are able to be directly certified at any time since the prior July, regardless of school enrollment. So this would include kids in households that participate in SNAP, TANF. If a state does direct certification with Medicaid data, it would include Medicaid. And it does not matter if they are enrolled in a school that participates in NSLP. They could be a virtual school student, they could be homeschooled, but they have to fall within the state's compulsory school age range to be kind of picked up in this data matching for this purpose. So in a lot of states, that could be like 6 to 16 or something like that, but it varies by state. Other category of eligibility is children of any age certified as free or reduced price, certified as eligible for free or reduced price meals by their school at any time since the prior July, whether that's by application, direct certification, or identification. So again, you could have a preschooler at an NSLP school certified by application or direct certification for free or reduced price meals. That child would get summer EBT. And then you also have children of any age enrolled in schools participating in NSLP or the school breakfast program that are determined eligible via summer EBT application. And that would include students in special provision schools, like schools doing the community eligibility provision, that are not already identified or directly certified as eligible for free or reduced price school meals. This is a big change from pandemic EBT. In PEBT, all students in CEP schools were eligible for summer EBT or for pandemic EBT, but that is not the case with summer EBT because it is again limited to those students who generally are eligible for free and reduced price meals. So yeah, I know that's a lot. Again, happy to answer questions on all of this and send more info. I do want to highlight some USDA resources. They put out a lot of stuff, including, as you'll notice from the things on the right, total rebranding of the summer meals programs to include summer EBT and non-congregate as well. So Sun Meals is now how they're referring to traditional congregate summer meals, or as like the umbrella branding. Sun Meals to Go is non-congregate meals, and Sun Bucks is summer EBT. But again, they've got a lot of sites that run through a lot of their kind of Q&As and guidance. We've got a link there again to the rural designations map and a lot of info on summer EBT. And then we have a bunch of resources as well. So we've got links on there to subscribe to No Kid Hungry's newsletter, our website. That's a link to the map that we have. It combines that rural eligibility piece with area eligibility. So that's pretty handy. And I also have a link there specifically to register for webinars because I'm doing a full hour-long webinar along with some colleagues on Thursday about non-congregate. So if you really do want to dive into a lot more details on non-congregate specifically, should definitely join me on Thursday. And I'll just say broadly, we're not doing a ton of national level work on summer EBT right now, just because again, not every state opted in. It's probably going to look pretty different state to state. So there's just a limit to what we want to really put out there nationally to avoid some confusion. But yeah. I think we have time for questions right now, but happy to hold those to the end as well.
No. We definitely have time for questions. And first, thank you, Carolyn. We count on you so much for your expertise. I personally learned so much from this. So really appreciate you joining. And we do have a question in the chat from Allison. What qualifies as a summer EBT application for kids at CEP schools who are not otherwise directly certified? So that's community eligibility provision for those that don't know.
Yes, great question. And it's a little bit different for this summer versus 2025. So in that interim final rule, USDA said that by 2025, states have to have a state administered application that would theoretically look pretty similar to a school meals application. Like a lot of the core requirements are the same, other than that it can't require the last 4 digits of the parent or guardian's social security number. But again, it has to be state administered. Schools could help to distribute it or whatnot, but it would be submitted to the state and processed by the state. For this summer is kind of a bridge to states developing and implementing that system. USDA will, I think, accept quite a bit of things, whether that's some kind of alternative income form that a school or state may already be using for the purposes of education funding formula allocations or other benefits. They may be asking CEP schools to collect standard free and reduced price meal applications on behalf of the state this summer. So it could look a lot of different ways this summer, but again, by 2025, states are generally expected to have some kind of statewide application that would be similar to a school meals application, but specific for summer EBT.
Thank you so much.
Can I, sorry, Allison, a question to follow up and thank you. Yeah, thank you for that response. So here we have schools that just went CEP this year. This is the first year that we did CEP. And so I saw there was sort of like a back date to last. So will kids who were on forms last year, will those be captured to then roll them into this upcoming summer? I think we're just a little concerned here that now we have 58 schools that have gone CEP, haven't filled out forms this year, and we have to get all those, or we have to help get all those kids for this.
And just as a reminder for everyone, you're in Maryland.
Yes, we're in Maryland. Yes, thank you.
I would say, unfortunately, generally not. I mean, I think by technicality, applications are valid for a year, ugh, this is where I used to work for a state agency on CACFP, and like CACFP follows like its own timeframes from the school year. I would just default to saying probably generally not. If it wasn't an application and a determination for this school year, I don't think it's going to count for summer 2024. There is the oddity that if you had a kid in a CEP school apply for summer EBT on July 2nd of this summer, they would get summer EBT for the full summer this summer, like they'd get the full $120 benefit, because USDA said it doesn't matter when during the summer you would apply for summer EBT. But because that application then carries forward that it's been at any time since the prior July, they would then also qualify for summer EBT in 2025.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Confusing, but I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Carolyn. And it looks like Anne Marie also has a question. Anne Marie, if you don't want, if you're fine with just unmuting yourself and asking your question.
Sure, yeah, and I apologize to be dominating from the Montgomery County Food Council. We have lots of questions today. But I'm Anne Marie, and like Allison said, so we're in Montgomery County, right outside of DC in Maryland. So I'm asking about the first part of your presentation. Normally, we are not considered a rural area, but we do have a pocket rural area. And we have a food assistance provider there who's really concerned about the length of travel time that families are expected to do, probably about 20 to 30-minute drive to get to the closest school that does offer summer meals. But of course, the schools in that area are all located in one central district that is not considered rural, but is like a sea of green around it. Do you have any kind of best practices or documents about, you know, what, because I kind of want to leave the school system out of it because I feel like we're having those conversations, but is there anything from the community provider perspective that they could consider doing to try to partner in that respect?
Unfortunately that's a common and frustrating phenomenon that outside of some of the most rural areas and like counties where the whole county is rural, even the town centers, in a lot of the closer in areas, any kind of reasonable town center area where it would make sense to have people come together for non-congregate distribution is non-rural. In those situations, I think mobile or home delivery can work well, where you're going to those families, you're going to those rural pockets, and not trying to figure out a place that families may be coming to otherwise. And then we definitely know from work we did in 2023 talking with families that they love home delivery because it's super convenient and overcomes every single transportation barrier they could have. So I know that's a little more effort and potentially more costly to get up and running. Mobile can be a little bit of a happy medium there without the advanced opt-in potentially and all of that. But those are definitely two things to consider. I mean, and that said, if there is any kind of library or rec center or something located in those green rural areas, obviously those are an option too. But I know that may not be the case if they're probably by the school.
I was going to say, and that would be on the school system to have to implement that program, right? Like it couldn't be a community partner coming to
mobile and home delivery can both be done by community-based partners. That is a little bit of a change, especially in home delivery from last summer. It was like a little unclear if nonprofits could do home delivery or whether they could only do it if they were working with a school. But this year it's pretty clear that they can do it on their own. You have to have a way to invite families to apply and give that advance opt-in for home delivery. So it could be done through a partnership with a school, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Carolyn, if you can hang out for a few minutes with us, if other folks have questions, please maybe put them in the chat because we do want to move on. But And also, Carolyn, if you're okay with sharing your email and putting you on the spot, folks can reach out to you directly with questions as well. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. We are going to be sharing these slides, although there is a request from Lisa for a link to the new map in this, so maybe you can edit
Just
your
dropped it in.
slides and drop in the hyperlink. That way everyone has it. Oh, you just dropped it in. Thank you. You're the best. Thank you so much. Okay. So our next presenter is Honor Horton with Hunger Free Vermont. As you all know, we always try to dedicate some time in these meetings to make sure that our network partners are really updating us on who they are and what they're up to. So right now I'll turn it over to Honor. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to introduce Hunger Free Vermont to those of you who don't know us yet. And I just have a few slides, so I'm going to share my screen. Just for those who are more visual, and do a brief introduction to our work. Hunger Free Vermont we're in our 31st year as an organization. Although we have done pretty significant transformations of our organization at a couple of different points. And we're kind of in one of those to a certain degree now, as I will explain a bit as we go through. But overall, we work on building coalitions, tackling root causes of hunger, prioritizing permanent solutions, and protecting and strengthening what works, meaning the various federal nutrition programs. Our mission is to end the injustice of hunger for everyone through prioritizing the people who are most affected by hunger to make permanent systemic change. And we really see our job as catalyzing systems change. And because we know that hunger was created by and is kept in place by systems and structures over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, really. So we engage in legislative advocacy, passing bills at the state level and working on the big federal bills that affect the federal nutrition programs. Also on administrative advocacy, working with state administering agencies for these programs to improve the way that those programs operate in Vermont, but also at the federal level with USDA. And other administrative agencies. We do public and institutional education about hunger, its root causes, and its systemic solutions. We do outreach and communications around all of the different nutrition programs and ways to access food. We do technical assistance and training. So we provide technical assistance and customized consulting at no charge to schools, childcare providers, school districts, area agencies on aging, food shelves and food pantries, community action agencies, and hospitals and healthcare systems throughout the state on how to carry out outreach around the different nutrition programs, how to help people enroll. And we also have a website that is both for people who want to see if they might qualify for SNAP and also resources for folks who serve low-income people around the state. And that is vermontfoodhelp.com, which you can see right here on one of our multi-language resources that we have. So Vermont we have a couple of refugee resettlement areas in Vermont. There are over 60 languages spoken in some of our schools. We have materials translated, both print and we have video in a number of the languages used by our largest refugee communities in Vermont. We also do data collection and data sharing and research on behalf of our coalition partners. We do coalition building and we do community organizing around different campaigns. And this over here is a photo of our most recent successful state legislative campaign, which was to make Vermont the 6th state in the country to provide universal breakfast and lunch at no charge at every single public school and at independent schools that opt in. And these were our high school students who were part of our Universal School Meals campaign coalition at the State House, where they lobbied the legislature and the governor on behalf of this program. So these are some of our, I was asked to share some of our more recent successes. So these are some of them, and we'd be happy to talk more about any of them. But we work on a broad range of issues, as you can see here. And some of our current ones are really working on making sure that everybody, no matter what language you speak, can learn about SNAP and learn how to enroll. We have recently, relatively recently, finally gotten the simplified SNAP application for older and disabled households implemented in Vermont, and recently just finally implemented Medicaid direct certification for school meals. I already mentioned our universal school meals bill success. We also, we're the first state, I still think the only state in the country that we know of that has an actual law on the books that our state agency cannot make changes to the SNAP program in our state without pulling together a group of community advisors and informing us ahead of time and working with us on that change and its implementation. That's our 3 Squares Vermont Transparency Bill. Another effort that we're working on is understanding that we are not going to end hunger alone, and we're not going to end hunger only by working on hunger, but we have to really deal with root causes, including racism and the kind of systems of white supremacy that exist. And so we have a project where we contribute our staff capacity to raise funds directly for BIPOC-led organizations in the food security space in Vermont. And we've raised $350,000 in the last 3 years. These are our new, I said we were in a bit of a transition. These are our new program priorities that we have created. So over the next 3 years, we're committed to identifying how we can best, most effectively support the groups in Vermont who are most impacted by hunger, and including continuing to these fledgling efforts of ours to support organizations led by most impacted people, to develop and carry out a policy platform that is focused on systemic, equitable, and permanent solutions to hunger, and aligned with the new Vermont Food Security Roadmap to 2035, which I'll talk about a little more in a moment, but we helped to write. And develop and launch a multifaceted communications campaign to reframe the true causes of and solutions to hunger, build coalitions and campaigns with organizations that are also advocating to address the root causes of hunger, and of course, protect the current federal and state nutrition and other benefit programs while working to make them more equitable, more valuable, more dignified, and easier to access and use for everyone. The Vermont Food Security Roadmap to 2035 is something really excited, and that is hyperlinked here. I'll also drop the link in the chat when I'm done. But this is a set of goals and policy and community and agriculture strategies that has been created over the last 2 years with hundreds and hundreds of hours of community input. And it is building a coalition of agriculture and anti-hunger organizations committing to work together for the next decade to actually end hunger and create food security for everyone in Vermont. And the premise that the roadmap is centered on is that it is government's responsibility to do that, and government can make policy choices that creates food security for all of us. So some of our current projects this year, we have 10 regional hunger councils. They have existed for between 10 and 15 years, depending on where, but they cover the whole state of Vermont and a little piece of the Upper Valley of New Hampshire. And we're working to really transform their purpose and align them with this new food security roadmap. And we have launched a campaign we're calling Give 3 Squares Vermont a Boost. 3 Squares Vermont is Vermont's name for SNAP. So you could just say Give SNAP a Boost campaign to actually expand the minimum SNAP benefit in Vermont so that no household receives less than $100 in monthly SNAP benefits, and establish the SNAP Restaurant Meals Program in Vermont, with a focus on community restaurants and food trucks, and to make the procedural change at our state agency that would allow all low-income community college students to be eligible for SNAP without additional work for food requirements. And we're also building a coalition of providers, advocates, and state agencies and funders to design a strategic plan to end childhood hunger in Vermont. Now that universal school meals has passed, how can we fill all the other gaps, some of which Carolyn was just talking about. And continuing our Farm Bill advocacy at the federal level and expanding the number of summer and after school meal programs. Again, this is many new towns in Vermont, over 90, have been made eligible for summer and after school meal sites, thanks to our Universal School Meals Act and the changes in CEP rules at USDA. And we're expanding our multi-language communications and continuing our community-centric fundraising efforts. And that's my contact info, which I will also drop in the chat. And I'll stop sharing my screen so that I can see you all, and would be very happy to take any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nora. Wow. So impressive, the volume of work that you all are doing and so many wonderful accomplishments. I'll just ask folks to raise their hand if they have any specific questions. But while we're waiting for folks to raise their hands, in terms of the roadmap to end hunger, can you talk a little bit about the effort behind that? Like, was that funded by any particular entity? Just want to get a sense of like who might be part of that effort in the state.
Yes, so in Vermont, we have something called the Vermont Farm to Plate Network. And this, it's housed inside of an entity called the Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund. I will drop a link to all of this in the chat for you in just a minute. But I can't talk and drop the link in the chat at the same time. That is beyond my capabilities to do. So the Vermont Farm to Plate Network is something that is kind of a public-private partnership. It was created actually by state law. The legislature created it as an entity and provides a significant amount of the funding. And the original idea behind this was to really build Vermont's agricultural sector, figure out what the barriers were to farmers being able to sell their products and market, so it was really kind of an economic development premise. And it was created for a decade. And then it was just renewed for its second decade. And in that time, some of us in the anti-hunger realm became involved. I was going to say infiltrated, but that sounds a little more sneaky than it really was, but became involved in the effort and really the understanding that, you know, everybody in Vermont deserves to be able to have access to Vermont grown food. And that needed to be part, that sort of equity piece needed to be part of the effort. And so one thing that happened in the renewal of this Farm to Plate network by the legislature for another decade of work was an assignment to the network to create a food security plan. And so some of the organizations on both the agriculture side and the food security side were asked to become a steering committee to facilitate the creation of this roadmap. And so this has been in process for 2 years, and it involved the collection of feedback from over 600 people around the state. So that was step one. And people were asked, and some of this was done in like groups, and some of it was done through a survey, and some of it was done by one-on-one interviews. So kind of a range of ways of collecting. People were asked, what are your solutions to food? You know, how would you create food security for everybody? That's what people were asked. And so all these solutions came in. And then some researchers at the University of Vermont kind of coded all of that and handed it to teams of people who pulled out kind of the solutions from all that data, and then handed all of that to us on the steering committee and said, turn this into a plan. So, and make sure you honor all those voices, you know? And so that is what we tried very hard to do. And it's just, was just released publicly in January. So we are just rolling it out around the state, but it's very exciting. And Hunger Free Vermont, we are committing ourselves 100% to this roadmap and to its fulfillment. And so we will not be doing any work for the next decade that is not inside of the roadmap as an organization.
Thank you so much. And I see Alex has a question. Alex?
Yeah, first, just thank you for this. This was a really helpful presentation for us. We're attempting to do some similar work. So we've got a coalition where we are in Southwestern Ohio. We've been going pretty strong for a few years. So I don't want to eat up too much of the group's time, but if you just have any quick tips, and maybe I can connect with you offline. You know, I think one of the difficult things we see sometimes with coalition building is sort of that, I hate to say power struggle, but, you know, trying to really truly collaborate with different organizations, especially when you have, you know, local representatives involved, and they might be really pushing for a campaign next season or something. So again, this might be more of a longer discussion and we could chat off this meeting, but do you have any just sort of quick tips on, you know, how to overcome some of those barriers when you're really trying to move the needle forward, you know, in a collective on a common goal, but you've got maybe some differing opinions or people who see things differently or just want to do things differently?
Yeah, Alex, I so appreciate that question, and I'd be delighted to talk with you more about it. You know, this is a huge challenge, and I think Hunger Free Vermont, we are one of the more powerful organizations in this space in our state. And so this is something we are really grappling with, is how do we use our power to create a coalition where we take a step back with our power. And I think that the approach that we're taking is to bring people together to first develop a set of principles. You know, how are we going to behave with each other? What is the decision-making model that we are going to adopt for how we prioritize what are the next policy goals that we're going to tackle? how are we going to do that? And where's in that process right now? And also, how are we going to collectively fundraise so that everybody who has to be at the table is resourced to be at the table? And what are we, the better resourced organizations, willing to put in the pot? Right? Like, I think that this is a pathway to better resourcing everybody, but first it's going to feel terrifying. It's going to feel terrifying to feel like you might be putting something at risk in terms of your personal organizational resources to fund this collective effort. So I think that it's up to us, the better resourced organizations in whatever group we're in, to take the risk first. And I think a set of shared principles has to be where you start.
Thank you. And I did miss your email, so I don't know if Minerva or you could share it with me later, but yeah, I didn't screenshot it quick enough.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thanks.
And we will share the presentation as well, which has Honor's contact. Honor, thank you so much. First, for your presentation today, but also your leadership in terms of the work you're doing in Vermont is really such a beacon for the rest of us around the country. So thank you for that. And just turning quickly for the rest of the meeting to some Alliance updates. I'd love my colleague Aaliyah to share some quick updates on what we're up to.
Yes, of course. We're up to so much, especially in March. So I'm really excited. I want to start off first with talking about our regional convening that is rescheduled to the March 22nd. So in a week and a half, which is so crazy. I'm going to put the registration link in our chat because we would love to see you all there in person in DC. Oh, go ahead, Minerva.
And just clarifying, this is our Northeast and Mid-Atlantic regional convening for our hunger-free community partners. And we will be having different regional convenings around the country. But we listened to you all when you said, hey, we miss meeting in person because we're now having virtual conferences. So the way we're sort of accommodating this at the Alliance is by having regional convenings where we are subsidizing travel for the groups in the region to come together to learn about each other and talk about different issues of interest and learn about best practices and challenges, and really looking forward to the 22nd in DC, which is our Northeast and Mid-Atlantic regional convening.
So if you are in that region, here's the link to register in the chat. And then we can move forward to our Zero Hunger Grant Program, which there are so many of you here who have submitted an application and also helped with our peer review process. So we really appreciate all the work that you all did to help us with that. We will be making decisions this week about grants. We're still in our internal review process, so that is very exciting. And a brief overview about the grant. We will be able to give 5 organizations up to $10,000 to help in different initiatives that have to do with capacity building and our goals as an HFC. So that is really exciting for us. Yeah, what did I miss, Minerva?
Nothing. The only other thing I will mention is we have a wonderful announcement. We have selected the date, so please save the date, and we'll send out an official save the date sometime in about a week. But November 14th will be our 2024 Hunger Free Communities Virtual Summit. And of course, we're counting on all of you to submit workshop proposals to really highlight the amazing work you're doing in your communities. So start thinking about that. But we are so excited. We'll be able to bring the summit again to you all virtually on November 14th. And so you'll be hearing a lot more about that. But we're really excited that we've been able to select a date. So there's lots going on, and we'll be communicating via email on just the things we covered today, sending out the PowerPoints, as well as some of those reminders for things that we have coming up. And Any final questions or thoughts before we wrap up? All right, with that, let me just thank our presenters again, Carolyn and Honor. We really appreciate you. And thank you again for being part of this network. We'll be in touch soon. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you all.